Tito, thank you so much for joining us today. I can tell you, I'm super excited. I met Zico in 1996. Met you, I think maybe 98, 99, 98 during the World Cup. I think we watched that together.
Yeah, we did.
Yep. And
Unfortunately.
really, all I know about you, like I said, you're born in Brazil. You brought me on as a coach at Colorado United back in, I want to say 2010 or 11. I coached my daughter's team and a few other teams. And you've coached some camps for me and Zico back in the day. So we've coached together. I don't even think we've ever played together other than just juggling in the front yard or something like that. To start off with, why don't you tell me what it was like growing up in Brazil, being born there? I'm curious what your first memories are of Brazil.
It's funny. My memories are split. I was very young when I left Brazil. I think I was 4. We moved to Canada and then moved back to Brazil. So the majority of my memories are after Zico's. Actually, we have a third brother. There's 3 of us. We have really weird backgrounds. I call myself the real Jason Bourne because I have 3 passports. I've got a Canadian one for my mom, my dad from Arkansas, and then I've got a Brazilian passport. And there's 3 of us. I know you've met Zico. Now you're meeting me. Only one of the 3 of us are really cool. Unfortunately, he's working, so he couldn't make the podcast today. But being there, it's really weird. I guess there is something in the water that makes you want to play soccer and love soccer. Even though I left at a very young age, had a quick stop in the States, then moved to Canada. And we were very lucky. We went from rural Brazil to rural Canada. And the strange thing is we found a pocket of people in Canada that loved soccer almost as much as the Brazilians did, which is weird. There was a lot of people that loved hockey, and then there was a pocket of people that loved soccer. And we connected with them right away. So it was almost without missing a beat. But I almost felt like we were in Brazil there too, because they were very creative players, sometimes lower income. And the one thing they loved was playing soccer, and just even in the winter, find a way to play. But the majority of my memories about Brazil would be when I went back as a sophomore in high school. I went back trying to get my heritage back or roots back, trying to play more soccer again in Brazil. But getting to the language again, getting comfortable with Portuguese again, I had a wonderful time to the point where I finished high school and decided not to jump right into college. I decided to go back for a couple of years and try and play soccer there, teach English, things like that. It's real quick. You realize that you're not a very good soccer player. I guess it's all relative. You may be a great soccer player in Canada or in the States, but when you go to São Paulo, you just realize there's 1,000 of you on your block, but they're better. And it is pretty amazing, just the cultural difference. And it's a religion. People joke that it's a religion, but it's very true. So I think going back there was a fantastic time. Now I went polar opposites. I was born in the Amazon jungle, and then I went to one of the largest cities in the world in São Paulo, which you don't even think you're in the same country. That's a quick introduction to me. With the stop in Canada, I do feel extremely Canadian, especially this time of the year when the Olympics are going on and Team Canada's hockey team is ready to go. So I'm excited for that as well.
That's cool, man. One thing that strikes me is that in the similarities, you were with the native people in Brazil as missionaries there. And then you were with the native people of Canada. That's who you grew up and played soccer with in Canada, was more of, for lack of a better word, indigenous. Was it indigenous people or historically?
Yeah, back then we called them Indians, the Fly Indian Band and the natives. Absolutely. And that's, I think, what made us popular with them and them popular with us is a background of being in the Amazon jungle with the natives in the Amazon jungle. All of a sudden we went there, and that's who we instantly felt comfortable with. And of course, it's the language of soccer as well. Didn't hurt, but the similarity there was huge. You go from people that aren't living in the huge city like Winnipeg or São Paulo. They're living dirt floors and cracks in their floors so you can sweep. In Brazil, then all of a sudden you're in a very rural area, very poor area in northern Manitoba. And I think that drew it. Soccer obviously helped, but that background of being with those people there and similar people, fantastic similarity. And there's some of our great friends to this day. Obviously, the older you get, the wider your net is and the less you get to actually see people. But through Facebook and different things like that, you still stay connected with a lot of those friends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
been one of the best parts about social media for me is reconnecting with old friends. Go ahead, Zico.
and yeah, so like Tito was saying, when we moved up to Manitoba, there's a guy named Frank Young, an older Cree Indian. So now it's called the Opaskwayak Cree Nation. And so within a week, my dad had connected to Frank Young, and we were playing on the Big Eddy Indian Reserve. That's where it was within a week. You're leaving Canada, going to the greatest hockey nation in the world. But then you find this pocket, like Tito said, and we are on Big Eddy Indian Reserve playing within a week. We were playing there because my dad hooked up with a passionate leader on the Big Eddy Indian Reserve, Frank Young. So it was phenomenal and it was cool. And then, too, you have the pond on the other side of the river is the Big Eddy Indian Reserve. And so we went across the river to play, and it seems like there was the soccer on the Indian Reserve, not in the town of the Paw, really. So it was phenomenal. And Tito's right. You would have thought that you left your utter passion in playing soccer in Brazil and that you went to Northern Canada and good luck finding soccer. No, we got it immediately. So it was really cool. It was fun.
That's great. No, that's just fascinating. When I know all three of us are big music fans, and I always tell people that international languages that transcend language itself, spoken language, are music and soccer. Yeah, my daughter, I don't know if you know this, Tito, but Maddie got married my oldest daughter got married in Rio back in 2022. And we stayed on the beach for 10 days right there, right around Rio de Janeiro. And one of my workout routines is juggling the ball. It's one of the things I can still do because my ACLs are after 4 ACLs, I don't really play, but I can juggle. And so in the mornings I would go on the beach and I would juggle, and the locals would come by and they would juggle with me because we didn't have to speak the same language. You can knock the ball around, you can play. Yeah. And music's the same way. You can pick up a guitar. Or Zico and I were in a Brazilian restaurant in Connecticut last year, and the guy came in and asked me they had karaoke, asked me to sing Hotel California because it's his favorite song.
Just want two quick things. Number one, I hope we can block my wife from this because she loves Rio so much. And we haven't been back in so long. We went for my 10-year anniversary and for the World Cup when we hosted. So that's been over 10 years now. And we went to the opening game. So hopefully we block that because he wants to go back so badly. And number two, I was actually scrolling on Facebook this morning when I wake up, a habit that I do every day and try to break. And you speak about music, and they showed the Super Bowl performance of Prince. And instantly I'm like, I haven't seen Prince in forever. And I know Dan is a massive Prince fan because I think you're from Minnesota, aren't you?
I lived there for a couple of years, but I'm from Kansas City originally. Yeah.
A big Prince fan. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I thought you.
Biggest Prince fan in the world. Nobody's a bigger Prince fan.
I've been on tour this year. I'll be on tour this year singing Purple Rain at your local karaoke bar. Multiple states last year.
Let us know where, and I'll make sure I'm somewhere else.
There you go. Moving on. So I don't know did you end up playing college? What happened after Canada?
This is the thing. After I realized I tried to play in Brazil, realized I wasn't good enough. I got actually recruited by a couple schools, and then I decided to go to Liberty because of familiarity. And Zico was there. They had a new coach. He gave me every opportunity, which is great. My problem is I did not like school. Yeah. And I will tell you, me as a soccer player, all the things that I wanted to do and was disappointed when coaches wanted me to do something different. Now I find myself, I'm that exact coach that, hey, I would have hated me as a player. I absolutely would have. Because when I grew up playing, I think Zico was like this as well. And luckily he's 15, 20 years older. So he played in a different era. I wanted it to be like the Civil War where we didn't break rules. When I played, I want you not to pressure me, and then I won't pressure you, and we'll both be able to just play the beautiful game and have fun doing that. Unfortunately, that's not how soccer was when you come to the States, because I think there was a lot less skill, maybe, especially in tight areas and in difficult areas. So it became just a track meet and running. I just gave soccer a go. I ended up finishing school in 3 years because I wanted to get out so quickly. It's funny. Everyone loves college. I absolutely did not like it. I loved Liberty out in Lynchburg, Virginia, but just the soccer, the environment, I was ready to get on with my life, which actually was a good thing because it took me into coaching real quick. kind of a
Yeah,
young
and
age.
yeah, I wasn't very focused on school either. In fact, when I played college ball, I was just trying to keep my GPA the minimum I could so I could play soccer. And then I left. And then when I went back later in my later 20s, I was excited to be in college and studying and got really good grades. But early, when I was young, I didn't know what college was.
I failed one class in college, and that was Spanish my freshman year, which is comical because I should have been at least had a head start with with Portuguese. But I thought this would be the best thing in the world, is that I take all 8 a.m. classes, then 9:45 classes, and be done by noon every single day. I thought that was heaven.
Yeah.
I didn't make an 8 a.m. class at all the first semester. And it's hard to pass a class when you don't make it. So I learned quickly. I got to cover that grade up when my next semester, I decided, hey, I'm going to do all noon classes so I can actually get there. So
Yeah.
Just in time. Get there just in time.
Just in time to put my tie on, because we had to wear ties at Liberty.
Oh, wow.
Let me go back. Let me go back and clarify something Tito said, though. As a player, Tito was very technical, but he was lazy. And both Tito and I played very much the same style. It was a lot of transition happened in those 15, 20 years as a player, where now number 10s run their butt off going forward and going back. Our creative, quote unquote, players run their butt off going forward, going back. And we were both stubborn, and Tito refused to change. But I would say this, Tito and I both lacked this. And I think you and I spoke about this just, I think, a week ago, Dan. I wish I would have had a mentor. And what Tito says as a coach is Tito coach is totally different than what he played. So do I. Beth always calls me a hypocrite. My wife always calls me a hypocrite because I start by, guarantee you, a team will not score 2 goals on us. They will score 1 max, period. And then we'll play from there. And I coached so opposite of the way I played. I wish I had somebody who would have told me, there's a saying that I love. Fitness isn't everything, but without it, you're nothing. Tito and I both could have played 10 games in humidity, and at the end of 10 games, not needed a shower. You got to move. You got to move. And if one of the principles of play is mobility, we never showed it.
I will say,
what I mean?
Function and fashion. That's what I tell my players. I would love to have both. As a team, I only had one as a player, and that was fashion, and it didn't function very well. But I was too stubborn to realize that, okay, if you want to keep going after college and you want to play soccer, you need both. It's okay, then I'll just quit before that. Now, that being said, when I have players that have amazing fashion, I expect them to have so much function, work, and same thing with my team. And I feel like a hypocrite, like you're saying, and what your wife, Beth, says. The truth is, I'm like, how can you not want this hard work and drive and everything? And then I look back 20 years ago when I was 15, there you go.
Right.
Yeah. But when I was young, I didn't want it either. And I probably look back at myself now, and maybe I'm just better as a coach in getting the players to buy into that. And I never had anybody who would really push me to buy into it. And to be honest, before college, we didn't have a lot of competitive soccer. And that's one thing I love to tell my players. I don't want to get off topic here, Dan, but you can make yourself a better player than any coach ever could. And I always use my brother as an example. Like I said, we have 2 brothers, and both Sean and I were good soccer players. I think very good soccer players. We didn't compare to Zico as players. He was an anomaly, if you will. He was such a good player, and he could have gone really far, and I wish he would have. But I remember we would go for runs to the dump trying to get him fit for college.
Explain what the dump was. Explain what the dump was.
About a mile away from our house in Canada. So I'd run 1 mile there, 1 mile back, and I'm going to get him ready for fitness for college. And I would be 100 yards in. I'd look back, and he had given up, and he'd walk back home. Goodness gracious. So if he had more, he could have been fantastic with that stuff.
It was a distance run. It was 100 yards.
Yes, that was pure distance. But I've been able to get people to buy into that, my players to buy into that, which I never did. And it was unfortunate. But to my point of, you don't need a coach to make you better necessarily. Zico is one of the few people that did not play competitive soccer. I bet his parents did not pay dues, except for maybe one season in Dallas when we left from Brazil to Canada. He didn't play a season of dues until he was probably 16, and then we went to Winnipeg, where there was competitive soccer. And to me, he's proof that all you need is a round thing and desire to get better. And he became more technical, and you played with him, Dan. He's become more technical where it's jaw-dropping. Wow, that's pretty amazing. And not only that, he was a good player. But this isn't a Puff Up Zico podcast. I'm sure we have a lot of things we can say bad about him in the next hour.
Look how big my head has gotten.
Yeah, we do. But to be fair, I'm much more likely to brag about my playing background than Zico is to brag about his playing background. I spend more time bragging about him than he does because he's one of the I've been lucky to play with some really great players, Yugoslavian national team players, Zico, a couple of Europeans where I was like, holy crap, this is what the next level's. And Zico was right in there, especially to your point from a technical perspective. I remember last time I played indoor with him, he just shouted my name and I couldn't even see him. Next thing, the ball lands on my left foot, right? So it comes curving out of nowhere, it lands on my left foot.
Are you left-footed?
No.
Well, that was a mistake by him. So
See, I told you, he's positive. He gave as much as he could give, as much positivity as possible. But you know what? Let me say this too. Something else what Tito's saying is the bottom line is we can all say that we underachieved, and for whatever reason. But I honestly think that led into coaching and wanting to achieve so much in coaching. And we won't have enough time today. The truth is we could interview Tito. Here's a hint. I've got connections. We could interview Tito 2 or 3 more times in just a specific area. And I won't say the story, but Tito, next time, maybe he can talk about what he heard a background about Pep Guardiola as one of the 2 or 3 greatest coaches on the planet, if not the greatest. And I think that screwing up, underachieving as a player, you're more in a way pumped up to, you've got more control when you coach a team or whatever. And it's great to work with players and see players pick things up and learn something and see this one little tip change the way a player sees the game, if that makes sense. And I think if you screw up as a player, you sure don't want to screw up as much as a coach. You like to get it right that time.
Yeah, and it's funny because as much as you underachieved, I probably overachieved. I fell into playing in the NPSL briefly and was like, oh, this is fun. I had no desire to do it, but I worked. Talk about working hard. We ran 3 hours a day to train. It was all running. And luckily, it wasn't dependent on my technical ability as much as being super fit, to your guys' point. But I'm curious about, Tito, how you got started in coaching, where you got started, and then how you ended up in Colorado.
I've been coaching forever, it feels. I did move here in 99, and that's when I started my full-time coaching journey. Okay. I had some opportunities to coach when I was younger, doing things for Manitoba soccer. I was very young. When I got into coaching was actually a little bit of an accident. I'd moved here for the summer from Brazil in 95 after college, and I was going to go back to Brazil. But I needed to do some things here. And I was living with my oldest brother, Sean, in Colorado Springs. And somebody asked him, hey, we hear your brother doesn't have a job. We want to get him off the couch. And would he be willing to coach a high school team at Cheyenne Mountain? And so I was 18 years old in 95, 19 years old. And so I said, yeah, I'll coach high school, whatever. And these kids are my same age pretty much. And so in 95, I got to coach a high school team, and the boys do varsity in the fall. So we coach varsity. We went 21-1-1. I remember that because we have a shirt that says the tribe's alive in 95. We won the state championship with a guy named Brian Contreras from Colorado Springs. Wonderful guy. Amazing.
Brilliant coach.
Amazing player. Even better person.
Good man.
He's a great friend of mine now, but I coached him. He was a sophomore at the time. I just graduated. And there's some other ones, Todd Lauber, Chad Lauber, some other guys. But I got into that. I knew nothing about coaching. All I knew is if I were to have an out-of-body experience and tell myself what to do, this is how I would do it. It just translated for me. I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at this, I think. And so I coached there, but still went back to Brazil with hopes of playing. And then when I came back to go to college in 96 or 7, finished it quickly. And my middle brother that's on this call, Zico, Brent, he had a job waiting for me at a club called Storm. It's an old club. So in 99, I moved here
You
as
worked
the
with us, I bet.
assistant. Yeah, you did. I was the assistant director of the recreational program. He was the head of the recreational program. We were implementing an advanced recreational side. So this is about the time when people started focusing on recreational soccer. This was the beginning, to be honest. I think we were the first club in Colorado to have 2 full-time people.
Yep.
Before, it was only one full-time babysitter for whatever 1,000 kids.
Yep.
And the amazing thing that Zico did is he ended up taking all the thousands of kids, and I took the advanced kids as his assistant. And so I got a bit lucky with that. But that within his personality. I don't think he's as competitive as me when it comes to coaching necessarily, or didn't have that aspiration. So I started coaching, and he ran a wonderful program. He taught me a ton about coaching. And I recognized right away, I think I have, and I hate to say the word gift, but that's the only gift I have is coaching. Everybody's got gifts. I always tell people I'd rather have gifts in finance and banking, but I was given a gift in coaching youth soccer. So I started coaching, and after a few years, I started getting pulled more to the competitive side, and he never had the desire. And then my last couple of years at Storm in the early 2000s, I coached a competitive girls team. I had some really good girls on that team. I coached against some friends of mine. And funny enough, my first ever team we coached against, my team was great. The Real team was great. And the Rush team was great. And we lost some players to Rush. And they had Lindsay Horan on that team. She left from Edge or Northland or some North club. And she went over there right away. And she was very difficult to play against. And I also had one of the best players I've ever coached, Brie Campos, who now I think she's the U17 Sweden's national team coach. So it's pretty fantastic. So that was my introduction to coaching. And it came right after college. And for the most part, in the last 26 years, probably 22 of them, I've been a full-time coach in one capacity or another.
Yeah, I loved what you said there. As I was going through the USSF licensing program, growing up in Kansas City, I didn't have many coaching mentors growing up in the 70s or 80s. So when I started going through that process, it really helped me be a better coach in my late teens, early 20s. But I ran into a coach who uses just approach things very Socratically, meaning as just asking questions. Like you said, this out-of-body experience. What would I say to myself? What should I say? And what I've enjoyed about when I've brainstormed some coaching activities, we call them activities, not drills or whatever, with Zico, that I like taking that Socratic process. What am I trying to accomplish in this training session? Right? What's my outcome, and what are the steps needed to get there? And when I've met really smart coaches, it's because we would come up with the same ideas completely separately. We're trying to accomplish this goal, and we would invent the exact same drill, unbeknownst to that the other person was doing the same thing. Did you, when you were learning how to be a coach, was it more of that Socratic process in addition to learning from Zico? Because he has gone through some formal training. Maybe that's fun. And did you go through any of the formal training like Zico went through with you at National College and all that stuff?
Let me say 2 things real quickly.
Yeah.
So Tito and I went to training together. Then I'll let him build on that. We went to everything together, and we have funny stories about this stuff together.
Yeah.
But the other thing is when Tito went back to Brazil and was in high school and re-upped his Portuguese, because when we came from Brazil, he was 4 years old. So he quickly forgot his Portuguese. When he went back, one of the sports he played, and I love it, and you were actually a really good player, Dan, but he played basketball because school spirit, and it's very much like soccer, and that it's north-south.
We had to. If we wanted to play futsal and soccer, we are a small school, you had to choose another sport, an American sport. It was either softball or basketball, so I had to. That was why.
Oh, okay. But here's the thing. Tito became the point guard, and not trying to be rude, he's got more basketball skill than me, but he doesn't have American basketball skill. And so Tito became the point guard because, I don't know, Tito can tell you, but they had something like 30 or 32 sets or whatever, and how they ran their offense and everything, and 4 or 8 plays from each set or whatever. They had a former American NCAA basketball coach who was living there coaching this high school team. And Tito was his point guard because Tito had the ability to memorize and learn everything of the formation and to literally say, Dan, no, you got to get on the top of the key. You got to whatever, if that makes sense. So Tito actually was a coach and did have a gift to coach. That is a fact. So there were better basketball players than Tito on that team by far, but they didn't know everything that the coach was trying to convey. So Tito was actually the coach on the court. Now, the other part, I'll let Tito answer for you, but he and I went to all the coaching courses together pretty much. That's how we started, at least together. Go ahead. Sorry, Tito.
Yeah, I did. So you said you didn't have mentors. I had a person who I absolutely love as a coach. I was not a basketball person, but this person coached and it resonated with me because it was truly making people better. And he was tough. He was firm on us. His name is Terry Havens. Wonderful coach. Love the man. And I do a lot of my coaching off of the way he coached. Real quick, before I go to the licensing and things, truth is, he wanted it to be as perfect as he could possibly make it. There were times where we would win the game or we would do something, 98% we're giving each other 5, and he would find that 2% that we weren't. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, it frustrated other people, but maybe it frustrated me too when I was a sophomore, junior high school, but I saw the importance of it. But going to the licensing, how did I get into coaching? I got into it. I was fortunate enough to do all my licensing, whether it's the NSCAA, which is USC now, US Soccer, the A license, and all those moving down. We were lucky enough to be able to jump right into our C, and that was our first license we'd ever done. And we didn't understand the process. There are definitely processes in US Soccer and how to do it. We didn't know what we were doing. We went to our first license. Because of playing background, we were able to jump straight into that. We both went. And I've learned a lot, and I think I've taken a lot from every single license, but that's not really how I coach. The truth is, I see a lot of coaches out there that they make stuff up that are going on just because it's the cool can thing to say. And I think both Zico and I are very unique in terms of coaching. I won't say eccentric. I'll just say we're weird in how we coach, but it works because I'm very big into what is really happening and how do we really fix it. Even if it doesn't come across as polished and smooth, it's a weird example, whatever it might be. And that's what I've done as a coach. I'm not saying that the stuff with US Soccer hasn't made me better, and I'm not grateful for that. I am saying I've used that stuff, but I've decided I'm going to coach the way that I think is going to make kids better, whether it's individually, whether it's a team collectively. I want to make sure that I'm actually doing what I'm seeing and I'm actually fixing what I'm seeing. Example, you lose a game 2-0. There's times I walk off the field and I tell the boys, you were great. You're fantastic. Whereas 90% of coaches, if they lost, they have to find some fictitious reason they lost. And it can be a canned answer that we lost because we didn't have width and we didn't transition well. We didn't know you lost because that team's a lot better than you and you guys played at your ceiling or above. And then there's times you win and we won because we were so good in these areas. No, you weren't. You just want whatever it might be. Yeah. But I've been grateful to finish all my licensing, but staying true to what I think is how. Don't be stubborn and not listen, but at the same time, listen, analyze, and see if it's going to improve you as a coach. Yeah. When I've already got my philosophies as a coach, I mentioned a coach, Terry Havens, who I take a lot of my coaching off of, and my demeanor. And even though I didn't know a lot about basketball, he taught us a lot. And also about my dad. He coached us. He was not like Terry Havens in terms of he didn't know soccer. My dad, if I threw a ball to him right now, he wouldn't know what to do with it with his feet. But you know what? He was a smart guy that knew if something's going wrong or how to fix things. Just use analytical approach. I don't know soccer, but it's pretty obvious if we keep them from scoring, like Zico said at the beginning, and we find ways to score, then that's a good way to coach. And he couldn't break it down perfectly, and maybe he'd lean on Sean, our oldest, or Zico or myself when he coached to demo or to maybe explain what he's trying to get out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Zico.
No, sorry, Dan, I'll let you go in 1 sec. And something Tito's saying too is he could coach today and people would call him Mr. Ward. And he is, man, I've never met a person who doesn't love or respect my dad beyond words. And so he could find the right spot for people, pretty general. Hey, you like fighting hard and cracking skulls, so you're going to be a holding midfielder, a central defender, or whatever. And he leaned on everybody around him. Everybody knew he absolutely loved them, cared for them. He demanded respect too, and that, do you remember this? It's like, no one will swear, no one will say a word like that, nobody will say anything bad or whatever. But then suddenly he was like a father figure, actually, because he had this high personal standard for the kids. He really did. Was he a real soccer coach? No. But he related to people, he cared for people, he demanded respect in the practice of yourself and others, if that makes sense. Did he lean on my older brother? Yes. I remember one time I was playing the middle midfield for a school team, and Tito probably knows this story, but it was funny. Tito wasn't there at the time, I don't think, but where my older brother, who was the coach of the high school team, he spoke to my dad. And so one time just before dinner, they're like, hey, and they set me down, and they're going to talk to me. They're moving me from the middle midfield to a right back, to the number 2 position, to a right back. And they were going to explain it to me, and they were ready for me to throw a temper tantrum or something like this. And so they sat down, and they both, and they moved all the glass and everything away, and they sat down and they explained it to me. And it was just common sense. They're like, high school soccer is everybody kicks the ball and nobody in midfield touches the ball. So if we have you in the back, but on the right side, some of the balls kicked over will land at your feet. And we had such a strong other 3 backs in the back that I was just overlapping from right back the whole time. It was like,
give me a break. You were dribbling for right back. You never overlap unless you knew you were going to get the ball.
I did not overlap. I did not run.
Be accurate here.
I had to run. So Tito's, I think all good coaches would do that, though. He wouldn't call himself a coach, my dad, in so many ways, but he leaned on everybody else around him, correct. And then on a personal level, he demanded that you respect yourself and each other and whatever, and don't swear and whatever else. And instantly people saw him as a father figure. I know I rambled too long, but go ahead, Dan.
No, it was great. I had an old German coach. In fact, I played at Missouri Southern State College a couple of years after Chris Edwinson was there briefly. And he was this old German Mormon guy. He was probably younger than I am now, but we thought he was super old, right? Yeah. And he would...
It's like the Golden Girls. They're all younger than I am. What's going on here?
He didn't teach us a lot, but on defense, he would say, on defense, don't let them shoot. On offense, if he is open, pass him the ball. There was like the 2 things we just did. And they were these very basic foundational things, but it was funny. We just remembered those quotes for him. And that kind of when I coach sometimes, guys, don't let them shoot. They're not going to score. It's kind of simple. But, and you know that in competitive soccer, as much as we love offense and the pretty game and going forward, the beautiful game and all of that, if you go into your competitive soccer season not organized on defense and wait to learn how to play team defense while you're learning how to play team offense, you're going to get 5 goals scored against you in a half because you're not organized defensively. And that makes winning the game hopeless. So I've noticed that with good competitive coaches, we're making sure our defense is solid. We'll build from there because if you start getting behind by multiple goals, your players get unmotivated, right? Parents it's just not a fun situation. So it makes sense to get organized defensively, especially when you got a new team. You don't want to wait. We'll figure out the defense week 6 of the season. By then, you had 30 goals scored against your team.
I can say this. I've been frustrated with missing opportunities, my team missing opportunities to score, not creating opportunities, but I don't generally lose sleep. What I lose sleep about is giving up goals that we shouldn't have. I always say goals aren't generally created against you. They're given. And most goals you give up are given because they're so hard. If they score a goal that they create, you applaud them. But I lose sleep over giving up opportunities, not being organized, not working hard enough. Those are probably the 3 things defensively. You mentioned organization.
And here's the thing. If I'm to say that I coach a team or I came in to take over a team and my team's lost 8-1 to this team, I can change one of those 2 scores dramatically.
You can make
Max will lose 3-1 or 2-1. Yeah, Max will lose 2 or 3-1. But we will not give up 8 goals. I can't make it where, guess what? next time we play them, we're going to lose at least 8-5 or 8-6. So between the 8-1, I can make it where it's only 2 or 3-1. Maybe it's 2-0. Maybe we get 2 shots from the center circle on them, but they're not going to get more than 2 goals on us. Or so it's like, you look at that, and just with structure and organization and controlled hard work, that 8 goes down to 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's belief, like you said, Dan. If you're down 5-0 at halftime, because I'm playing a 4-3-3 high press and I'm very open, or a 3-4-3 high press and I'm very open, and you're down 5-0 at half, Einstein, that wasn't brilliant. You've got to give your players hope, right? And then if we're down 1-0, it's okay, we're building on the future. 1-0, we've had 8% of the ball. They've had 90% of the ball. Do we just go ahead and lose at 1-0 intentionally, or do we go for it? And I know that at the end of the game, I can let the kids up. Guys, there's only 2. Now, don't get me wrong. They had the ball the whole game. It was only 2 because we went for the tie.
Yeah.
Or do we just go for the tie, leave it at the tie?
And then when you got your last 4 goals scored on you, your possession stats went up at center circle.
Correct.
So.
Correct. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
No, that's great.
You're going to have a lot of editing, him and I just talking back and forth.
No, we keep these pretty raw and real, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's good. What would you, I have this as a question to ask you. I'm curious. Give me a little bit of what you guys, how you'd answer this question already. But when you talk about core values or philosophies on how you coach youth soccer, what comes to mind when you hear that? What are your core values and philosophies on youth soccer? We talked about it a little bit already.
I'm going to give you a few things. And my dad used to say wardology. We mentioned that the A license or B license, all the licensing, you get your stuff from that, but you formulate your own philosophies. Mm-hmm. And my number one overriding thing is attention to detail, whatever it is, positioning, decision-making, when you're technically trying to figure things out. I will say, I break soccer coaching into 2 things. And soccer playing into 2 things, and I coach it this way. I'm going to leave effort out, because if you don't have effort and you're not internally motivated, I'm not too worried about you as a player. Sorry, there's not a lot I can do. I can try. I can bring out the whips and chains, but that's not what I want to do. Majority of kids are motivated. I'm not going to do a lot about them physically. We do speed and agility stuff and flexibility and strength training, things like that's fine. But it's all about decision-making and execution of those decisions. That's what soccer is for me, 100%. Again, leaving out the motivation, internal motivation. I want motivated kids. It's hard for me to make a unmotivated kid motivated, because if I am, it's just a Band-Aid. Yeah. But it's all about decision-making and execution. Decision-making, execution. Now, learning them is completely opposite. It's execution that they don't know why they're executing it. And then you add the decision making, especially at a young age. It's all about giving them the tools. That's what I call the execution, the technique, giving them the tools, even though you're not even talking about how to implement those tools. Okay. Yeah. And as they get older, now when they have an opportunity to implement tools, it is impossible to implement tools that you don't have. Yeah. If I have a nail that I'm trying to knock in, I know what I should do here. I should use this hammer, but I don't have that tool. So I've always said it's about decision-making and execution as you get older. And then, but learning it's completely opposite. It's about giving them the tools, and then later they get put in environments and situations where they need to be able to execute. And then I think it's super important. And I coached some U19 boys just last week, and we got into a 5v3 game with a neutral on each side. And I had to stop them. And part of it, they weren't as motivated as I wish they were. Yeah. But when you work with them and they are motivated and they're doing things, I think it's almost an internal scorecard players must have as to when they're making mistakes, because they're going to make mistakes. Start recognizing, where are my mistakes coming from? Am I making bad decisions, or am I making good decisions and just unable to execute? Now, I probably should have said this to the 19-year-olds. I said, if that second one's the case, that ship has sailed and you may want to play band instead, or the radio. But I don't think I said that. Maybe I said that internally. Yeah. But I think it's super important for players to start recognizing, apart from the motivation and working hard and the speed, and not everybody can do what Shaquille O'Neal does because he's got some physical gifts others don't. But the things they can actually do themselves and make sure that they can take care of is the decision-making execution. But certain players are constantly making good decisions, but they just can't execute it. Well, that gives us a basis of where you should emphasize your individual time and maybe your emphasis. And other players can do whatever they want. They are the most clean as a whistle, as my buddy Lyle LeBeer would say. You see a team that's clean as a whistle, but they're making bad decisions. They're dribbling when they shouldn't. They're playing into pressure. They're whatever it might be. Defensively, they're diving in. They can go on both sides of the ball. But that's my philosophy. If I can improve players' decision-making and the tools to use when they make those decisions, I've done a pretty good job. If I can get those 11, 10 field positions, knowing what they should be doing and how to do it, I can teach from there.
Yeah, and that resonated with me a lot. I think that when they're little, it's almost like a wax on, wax off, right? That old Mr. Miyagi. They don't know why they're learning how to do all these things with
Correct.
the ball.
100%. You said it better than I did.
But if they can't do it, then they're not going to be able to make a good decision. But that kind of fits even when they're younger. You're working on execution, the touch, the skills, so that as they get older and they're smart enough to start making decisions, think outside their own space and connect with other people, they have the ability to do that. So yeah, I've heard Zico's version of that and your version of that. That's awesome. Let's see what else I got here. And I answered the question, you're transitioning young kids versus older kids. I have seen some amazing players at 15 where you say, dude, your technical ability is horrific and you think they don't have a chance to ever be a good player. And then all of a sudden they focus, 20 hours a week to improving their execution. And they come back a year later and you're like, holy crap, this guy's a good player. But that oftentimes is the exception because so much of that stuff has to be learned. It's such
and that's that motivation that Tito said that they find within, because if you don't have, that's bad news too. And let me say something else too. And I don't know if Tito wants to speak on this, but Dan, I don't know that we really covered it a lot. When Tito started coaching for me in 99, he was focused on I know it sounds funny. We can go way deeper than this on the U8, U9, U10 that were the most committed ones. And that's the word we use, the most committed ones. But then he and I did camps, winter camps, summer camps, what have you. And we would have the U5s, the U6s, the U7s. And I guess, Tito, what I'd like to say is, how did that help you as a coach actually starting? Because Dan started like this, I started like this, and you started like this. We started together pretty much with little shysters who were just little kids who were taken there in their car, needed Velcro to fasten their shoes together, and their shin guards were outside of their socks, and their socks were all the way up into their shorts. Anyway, how does that help you as a coach?
It helped me decide
run away
to coach older kids quick. No, do you remember what we called it?
It's a workout.
It was called, so we had about 200 kids come out, about 4 years old, and it was their first experience in soccer. This is over at Storm at Banbury. We weren't even on Gates. This is at Banbury. This is how long ago this was. So we would have all these people and we would lead it, but we would have volunteer we called it the Braveheart Clinics because we would sit there and 400 or 200 kids are coming chasing us. And it felt like William Wallace getting chased by these people. And I was like, oh my goodness.
But 200 kids come from the parking lot just like this. And you're facing them. It's like,
and you can't tell them to slow down. You can't whatever. You say, okay, the 4-year-olds go over there and the 5-year-olds go over there. And Zico tells a funny story. The 4-year-olds go over there, the 5-year-olds go over there, and everyone spreads out. And then there's this little kid crying. What's wrong, Jimmy? Where do the 4.5-year-olds go? So you really have to be a good coach to be successful at that young because they are concrete. They are, you can't just give them generalities, general information. You have to be concrete. Okay. Don't pee your pants when you're out here. He pooped his pants. Crap. It's like, I should have been more specific. And as a friend of mine, Mike Freitag would say, a player he was telling him, push up in midfield, push up in midfield. And he looks over and he sees Tyler over there doing a push up in midfield. And he's, oh man, not that kind of push up. Oh, forget it. So you have to learn how to really articulate things with people. Yeah. But that helped me a ton because I was able to realize, how do you break things down to not only the lowest common denominator, but also how do you make it truly relevant where they understand it, whether it's a joke, whether it's a phrase, and every week I'm coming up with different phrases that I really like, and I ride for a little while. My team has lately been really good at possession out of the back, but we possess ourselves right into our own corner flag, but we've got 80 passes. But where have we gone? To our own corner flag, and then they kick it out for a throw in. Now we've got a throw in 9 versus 10 because our guy's throwing it in our own corner flag. I'm like, yeah, that's great. So what I've been really focusing, this is just an example. I tell my players, Zico mentioned the 2, the right back. The 4, the right center back, is trying to pass to the 2. And I've always been one that, okay, give him a good possession angle. Okay. Now my kids are good enough that I'm actually saying, we want to get a progression angle if possible as well. And if you can get past their 11 shoulder and still be seen, a right-footed player might be able to bend the ball to you, and we've broken that line, and now you're 6 yards the other side, their goal side of their 11. Now they're 11. People know the 11 doesn't want to track back. So the little things, progression angle versus possession angle, and my players it's resonating with them. Explaining movement and getting players to move. I always said ABC, always be changing your position, where you are on the field, always be changing your body shape. And I want them to understand those things. So that came from working with little kids and realizing I've got to find ways for this to actually make a dent in their cranium where they're actually understanding this. And I think you see a lot of really good coaches weren't great players, because if you ask, you mentioned a guy, Chris Edmondson, if he's a good coach, but if you were to ask him, how do you bring a ball down with your left foot when the goalkeeper punts it, he'd just be like, oh, like this. And he would just do it. Couldn't explain it just because it is so natural for him. I'm not saying he can't, but there's a lot of coaches like that have played a high level. They can't explain it because it just happens for them. Magic. It's like that story. Have you seen the movie Escape to Victory or Victory?
Oh, yeah.
With Pele. And Pele's from Trinidad. And he's explaining to Michael Caine. Michael Caine's using all this, the board, to do all these tactical things. And he's like, hey, coach, hold on. Give me, and he gets his chalkboard. He's like, here, give me the ball here, the top of the box. I go here, shoot, score, easy. It's that's great coaching, but not everybody can do that. So
there was a player I played with, Edmund Rugova, who played for the Yugoslavian national team. And I caught it, and he was like one of the last players on the NASL's New York Cosmos, when that team, he came to the States right when that team folded, ended up in the indoor, yada, yada. Same thing. I would watch him coach. He'd be like, don't shoot it there. And he would, and with no sense, because all he remembers is being a great player. He didn't know how to break it down. I was a bad enough player. I remembered learning how to do stuff. And Tyler, when he was about 9 years old, I was like, my son needs to be motivated, and he loves Edmund Rugova. Edmund's not going to teach him anything technical wise, but he'll yell at him on where to
inspire him.
Yep, and he'll inspire him.
Correct.
So I had Tyler go play for Edmund, and people were like, why is he playing for Edmund? Edmund's not great at teaching little kids how to do stuff. I'm like, I don't need him to teach Tyler how to, as you put it, execute. I need him to tell Tyler how to execute.
What are the breakdowns? I can't break it down. I just do it. So
let me give you this. Here's a great story. What Tito's saying too. I think if you're a coach, what you realize is you can have all the soccer knowledge in the world, let's say. Number one is you have to have the ability to communicate and to know what level you're communicating at. Am I communicating to concrete kids, of course? But then Tito just talked about coaching U19s, and you can coach in gray areas there, let's say, and they have the ability of reading the game and adjusting this way or that way, whatever. So I was in this horrible position of doing an atrocious camp for somebody, and I had 5 and 6 year olds, and I did something I would never do with them except for this. I had 5 and 6 year olds. That's awesome. Got to bring the energy. But the camps were so poor that I had 5 and 6 year olds for 3 hours. And I think a root canal is a little more fun and enjoyable and easier without Novocaine. And so I had 5 and 6 year olds for 3 hours. Undoable. But I was sitting there, and it would have been what was called Field 9 or Field 7 back in the day at Banbury again. And Tito walked up, And I would not do this with the kids, but I was doing this with the kids. I decided to take a long, slow time in teaching something that was above their heads, but it was static. Why? It's summertime, it's 94 degrees, and I have 5 and 6-year-olds for an eternity. And so Tito actually was driving up, and Tito was going to be doing a camp somewhere near there. And Tito drove up, and I'm like, Tito, I'm actually trying to communicate with these kids, but I want to slow it down because not everything, they need high energy and 1 ball per kid, but they don't have the energy to go 3 hours high energy, 1 ball per kid.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, Tito, I'm trying to work with them on their plant foot. Now, would I really be teaching 5 and 6-year-olds the plant foot and how to shoot and strike a ball in a camp if it was only 1 hour? Not really. I'd have a lot of dribbling and being a ball hug and a show off. Tito and I always talked about that. And so Tito, hey, I've got something. And I'm like, great. And so Tito said, do you remember this, Tito, or no?
Plant your foot next to the car and get in with your mom and go home.
Correct. Exactly. Do you remember this story, Tito, or no?
I don't, not at all.
And so Tito walked up and Tito's like, let me try. And so I'm like, try, please, while I sit here in the shade and get a Zico water. And so I really slowed it down to something that was a little boring to them, but boring and not running was better than running and crying in about 6-7 minutes because you're in for 1 hour and 43 minutes in. And so, hey, I saw this last night and I came up with this last night. See what you think. I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here. And so, hey guys, I was just watching a show the other day. And even then, no kids know what Tom and Jerry is, right? But I saw a cat. It was a cartoon and a cat chased a mouse. And what does a cat do when it tries to, and Tito went like this, and not all, but probably right around 50% of the kids yelled pounce. And Tito said,
oh yeah, I do remember. Yeah.
You remember now? And Tito, you got to pounce your foot next to the ball. Pounce your foot next to the ball. And so I was like, you jerk. I've used plant, I've used step, I've used put, I've used whatever. And the good news is that's a word picture. And especially if you think about relating to the kids, how can I relate to this group? You know what I mean? And so that was pretty cool. I think it's something all of us, starting with literally 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, man, it sure makes it easy to actually coach soccer to 14 or 15-year-olds. My goodness, 14 and 15-year-olds, you feel like, hey, we can be BFFs because they're not concrete. They can talk, they can communicate, they can understand. But with young kids, man, you've got to be a master of it. You know what I mean? And so you start at the hardest level with 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds. And so all of us had done that before. So that was pretty cool. So when Tito was talking about clearly communicating, I remember that story. I always thought that was a funny story. I loved it.
Yeah. To go on that, as I coach with a guy named Sean Commerges, we get along really well. We do a great job together, I think. And we were looking at a player that was, that was just stubbing the ball at a person. And then that person wouldn't have success. And we were talking about it and we noticed it. And I think I said something, and it resonated with both of us, is we've got to teach this player not to pass the ball to them, but pass the ball through them to another place. And then if you're automatically thinking, if I'm crossing the ball, I'm a 7 and I'm crossing the ball, I'm not crossing to my 9. I'm crossing to the back of the net through my 9. So it might be a roll to his back foot. It might be a lofted ball to the far side. Does that make sense? And so I think we came back and came together. We're like, wow, that makes sense to us. And hopefully it makes sense to him that you're not actually passing the ball to this player. And I call it, we have so many players that pass the buck, not the ball. They're just like, I'm under pressure. I'm going to give it to you. Just pass the buck. I want them to actually, if I'm passing from my left center back, my 5 to my 4, I know that they're going to go to the 2. I'm not thinking about passing to the 4. I'm passing to the 2 through the 4. And I don't think a lot of coaches really put that much thought and detail into it. That's why my hair is gray at 34, is because of that. And I think it's important. And I got that start coaching 5-year-olds to 10-year-olds. And that made me, that kind of, the early coaching brought my philosophy of being very detailed with everything. I mentioned at the beginning of this little segment that attention to detail is huge for my players. It's huge for me too, to teach them. I'm not going to give generalities or generic stuff. I'm actually going to make something that I know in this 90 minutes of coaching, I will see an improvement on our team collectively, their decision making, and individually a player's technique and decision making. If I don't, I haven't had a good training session. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, sometimes a lot, sometimes one thing. But that's important for me to every practice feel like I've made an impact that way.
No,
And heaven forbid they have a little fun too.
and a lot of times that's the difference between a good player and a great player. And when I was getting my C license, they were talking about a good pass in basketball isn't to the man, it's anticipating what he has to do when he receives the ball. So if he's got to shoot on his next thing when you pass on the ball, then you better give it to him here, right?
Yeah.
Because he's going to grab here and shoot. And every sport's like that. An NFL quarterback, if I'm just throwing it to the guy, but I'm not, and he has to change his gait, his speed to receive the ball.
Yep.
You have to think past. You have to think all of those things. So yeah, that's those details are huge. I think I had my high school. I coached high school state champions in Kansas City area one year, and I got them in the mindset of no wasted touches. So if you're trying to give that guy the ball so he can score, don't pass it to his back foot. Give it to him on his front foot. If your first touch, you kill the ball in front of you, that's a wasted touch. Let's think about the next thing. So yeah, as they get older, it's fun to resonate and communicate with them. Anyway, I love talking to you guys about coaching. We could talk forever, and I would learn a lot from you guys, I'm sure. Bottom line, I'm getting that, yeah. One of the most brilliant things, and I'll say this, when we were at the coaches convention last year, Zico and I went, there were some new coaches for Colorado United who we bumped into, knew them. This girl, I said, what are you coaching at United? And she got a little down. I said, well, I'm just coaching the 7 and 8-year-olds. And I said, hold on, time out. That's where you learn how to coach. You should be proud of that and own that, because that's going to make anybody can coach a 15-year-old. If they played high school or college, they can figure out what to do. But you really learn how to coach and teach and communicate at those younger ages. So I think that's
correct.
That was one of the best things. My mentors, when I was 19, they threw me on the field with 5 and 6-year-olds for hours and hours. And that's where you have to learn. So it's a big learning. Now, let's go over. It's World Cup year. 2010 was supposed to be the year that United States was the best soccer team on the planet. Remember that? That was the year. It was my son's generation. They started in the 90s saying, that's the year we're going to win the World Cup. Hasn't happened. So when we talk about U.S. soccer and how has it gotten better over the years, where are still the blind spots to help U.S. soccer get better? What do you guys think are some of the ingredients we're missing? We're never going to be Brazil, right? Growing up playing soccer with a tin can in the back alley or whatever, that's not our culture. We have our own culture. But what are you guys' thoughts about U.S. soccer as you've seen it evolve over the last 30 years?
I'll say right off the bat, because I've been on the competitive side more than Zico has, and we just saw 28 really talented 2012 players, so 13, 14-year-olds. They're so talented, they are, but it is all relative. You put them in this environment, you see how good they are. Then if you were to take that whole group in the Netherlands and play with their 28 best, you'd be like, oh, wow, maybe we're jumping the gun a little bit here. I heard somebody say soccer is the future sport of America and always will be. I want it to really work. I will never cheer for anything other than Brazil for the World Cup, but it is a numbers game partly, and there's a lot more players playing. There's a lot better coaching. And people that said they were looking at 2010 as being the year, I always said it can't be judged in years. It's got to be judged in generations. If you look at Claudio Reyna being a great player, and he played against my brother when he was at Liberty in Virginia, right? Great player. It's not his son, it's his great-grandson who's going to be making the proper strides to be there. It's not a 10-year thing or a 20-year thing, because that's only one generation. That's only one group of players. What you'll notice is when Claudio Reyna is a great player, teaches his son to be a great player, even better than he was. It's when Claudio Reyna's son, Gio, I think, his great-great-grandson or great-grandson, and it's a generational thing. And I don't think Americans want to hear that, but it's a numbers game both ways. You're starting to gain those really quality players, and the number of quality players is such a huge thing as well. If you think of but it's a bit of a luck game too in the World Cup. Brazil, I thought, should have won the last World Cup, but we lost to Croatia. and they had one shot on goal and they beat us. And it's a difficult thing to do. I think the talent level, though, is so much higher. I remember my first competitive team back in, I think they were U11 in 2005. Okay. So I don't know how exactly old they are now, but I don't think they would probably be a P2 or P3 team. And I see Premier 3, Premier 2, Premier 3, and they're changing all these names and stuff. But I see third and fourth level teams passing the ball and stringing together 8 passes, being very technical, cerebral. They're actually looking like soccer teams, which is a good thing for the numbers game. That means you're in a club, your 60th, 50th best player still plays soccer.
Yes.
25 years ago, if you weren't on the top team, and even if you were, you probably weren't really talented at the game itself. It has changed a ton.
Yeah.
I don't know if the high level players have kept up with the mid-level players in their improvement. I think they obviously have, because there are some American players playing in Champions League and playing in all of the major. The Italian, probably the best player this year, is an American guy. In England, there's players. In Germany and France, and am I missing Spain? There's American players out there playing.
Sure.
So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I do think one of the hindrances is when you tout yourself more than anyone else touts you. And we did it with, what was his name?
Freddie Adu.
Freddie Adu. We did it with him. Let's just hold on. Let's not jump the gun just yet. We've done that. Now we're doing it with this Sullivan guy. Maybe he might be the thing, but don't push it too hard, because it's a disaster, recipe for disaster when you're overdoing your expectations prematurely and not with merit or reason. But the kids have gotten a lot better.
Yeah. And let me say this too. Rivaldo, who I love, great Brazilian, World Player of the Year in 2003 or 2, out of this world. Classic number 10 from Brazil. Rivaldo, his dad died when he was 11 or 12. I always get these two numbers messed up. And the closest neighboring town with a team with a uniform and everything else was 11 or 12 miles away. So let's say his dad died when he was 11 and the town was 12 miles away. Or his dad died when he was 12 and the town was 11 miles away. Anyway, Rivaldo went to training 3 days a week.
Not the important part of the story, Zico.
That is the most. So,
Correct.
that's the end of it.
Correct.
That was it, Dan.
He didn't have a car, didn't have a this, didn't have a that. He would jog / get a ride, hitchhike. He'd jog / hitchhike to the neighboring town, 11 or 12 miles away, to train 3 days a week. And they said a ton of times he jogged the full 11 or 12 miles to train. How many of our top players would do that? Travel, think about it, 72 miles a week.
Yeah.
Or 66 miles a week, there and back. So that's that motivation from inside that Tito had mentioned earlier too. And I think another thing that helps the U.S. and that hinders the U.S. Technology helps and hinders. There's some good side to it, some bad side to it. What I've always said is this: YouTube helps that kid who is motivated, but it also hurts a kid because I see boys, let's go to boys, who, I'm going to do the rainbow. I've seen you waste time doing that before every practice for the last 4 months. Right. You'd never try it in a game. How about this? Learn to pass the ball with the outside of your left foot. How about that? So boys will go to, I'm going to do the Neymar thing, but he can't strike the ball cleanly on both feet, if that makes sense. So on one, Tito knows the kid's name. I don't know his name, but Tito has this great young Dutch player who played for him, who Tito said the kid's phenomenal. He'll see something, he'll go downstairs and do it for 2 hours that night. And guess what? He can do it. Where other kids is like, I'm going to try the Neymar flick. And so technology can be good, but it can also hurt. The other thing is, as I'm watching YouTube, that other kid across the world, he's just playing soccer. And that's something that's tough. And something that Tito said that I've said for a few years now too is this: the coaching in the U.S. is better than the coaching in Brazil and better than the coaching in so many other countries. I looked down a couple years back. I looked down and I saw, Tito, these guys. Dan, you played with some of these guys. I saw Jeff Carroll on the sideline, Tito. I saw Rafael Amaya on the sideline, Tito on the sideline, Carlo Conocchia on the sideline, and I was on the sideline. On one sideline. And Carlo Conocchia played in the Italian Serie A. Diego played in the first division in Argentina. And then Jeff Carroll, phenomenal player who played college Division I, and then Tito. And I'm like, you know what,
And
man?
Zico wasn't able to bring them all down.
Correct.
But
And
here's something with that, though,
amazing.
Zico. You can only drink so much water. And I think it is important that we spread the water a little bit around. We see that a lot. Everybody wants to be around the best players, even though we don't know who they're going to be in 5 years. And you'll see 6 coaches on one sideline. And I think
100%.
that is something that some of the big clubs are maybe dropping the ball on a little bit. Is these players, maybe they're early developers, they have it early. So then we have 7 coaches on the sideline helping those 11 players, 10 players and a goalkeeper, when maybe we could spread it around a little bit. There's only so much you need. Like I said, I will say what I started with is my love of the game, and why I think instantly we were pretty good players is there is something in the water. I don't know what it is. In Brazil, in Holland, or Netherlands, sorry. We've got some Dutch friends. I can't say Holland. I got to say Netherlands because they're from outside of Holland. But there's something in the water, and there's an it factor. Parents hate to hear it, but why is this kid better than my kid? The Dutch kid, Liam, that you just talked about, he does work hard, but he has an it factor too that is amazing. Parents hate to hear it, but some kids, I call it their floor and their ceiling. They have a higher floor than other kids have. Their ceiling's higher than other kids, but the important part is, can they get to their ceiling or break through what you thought their ceiling was going to be? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And a lot of people have the it factor in any walk of life or any industry in life. There's people that have an it factor. It's like, why is he just so much better than this person? Because I'm trying.
Yeah.
I don't know why my muscles aren't big. I'm not working out, but if I did, they wouldn't get any bigger.
Yeah.
But I think that's important to recognize. We have some great coaches out here, but you can only drink so much water. If a player's not willing to go out and just live the game, and they'd rather go to prom than soccer. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to prom, but it is true passion. We confuse passion with love. I love soccer, but are you truly passionate about it?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, there are 300 million, 250 million people, whatever it is, in Brazil that are truly passionate about it. So it's hard to catch up. Which makes you wonder, how does a small country like Serbia have the best basketball player in the world and best tennis player in the world 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
All right, so we're gonna move on. I have a hard stop. I get to go babysit my granddaughter this afternoon. So
That sounds like more fun than babysitting my brother and I.
Yeah.
Correct.
I did hear a coach say a long time ago that until the middle gets better, the top won't get better in the U.S. And that's one thing I've seen happen. When I was a kid, you had competitive soccer, 11 kids, and then everyone else who didn't get a coach. Now there's, to your point, the players that might have back in the 90s might have seemed like the best players. Now those guys are P3, P2 players. So it creates, it pushes up, it raises the floors, raises the ceilings for everybody, because if you're not pushed, you're not going to raise anything. And that guy in the Netherlands grew up watching soccer there and competing against players there and just saw a whole new level. And I'm sure it's just a different experience, not to mention Brazil and all that. But anyway, all right, let's move on. I want to know your predictions. I know you're both rooting for Brazil. I also know you'll both, especially Tito, I'm not sure about Zico, but Tito, I've heard you be realistic about Brazil before.
When was that?
And to your point, it takes a lot of luck, or if you're Messi, it takes a lot of penalty kicks. Make it to the finals. But what are your guys' predictions for World Cup? Who do you see being the top teams, and how do you think Brazil's going to do?
I'll let Tito go first, but I said if the U.S. got 5 penalty kicks in the last World Cup, they could have won the last World Cup too. Go ahead.
Yes, we obviously just like the Argentine team, but I will say an African team could go far again. The heat will be a big factor. South American team, Colombia could be really good. France is going to be really good. But my prediction is Brazil is going to win it. I think we've got more talent. And what I said about you can only drink so much water, I wish you could put in. I wish there was a massive World Cup where 4 teams got put in, and Brazil put 4 in, they'd win 3 of the 4. Unfortunately, if they only put 1 in, they've got 80 players that could make the World Cup team. I'm thinking Brazil. I think this coach that we've got, embarrassingly, is not a Brazilian, but will be helpful. And I will trade. I would even have Pep as our and I can't stand him. I would even have him as if that meant we had a chance to win the World Cup. I don't know how we haven't formulated or found the formula of Ronaldo, the R9 yet. Again, since we haven't had a 9 forever. I'm hoping we can rectify that. We've got a lot of good ones, but not anything special. But I am thinking Brazil's going to win the World Cup. I think the heat will be a good factor for us.
All right.
Well,
Zeke, you've got 2 minutes. You've got maximum 2 minutes.
That's more biased than me. Hey, you know what? The number one thing isn't talent. It is luck. Number 2 might be talent. And Tito said, if it's a one-off, Brazil's lost with a ton of one-offs over the last 3-4 World Cups, whatever. They've lost with a ton of just, if it was a 3-game series, win 2 out of 3, I think Brazil would have done even better and more, let's say. I think Brazil has as much talent as anybody, but only 11 players step on the field. I think it'd be nice to have a number 9 who he'll get you just about 1 goal a game. I don't know that we have that. We do have a wonderful coach who I think, again, is pragmatic, and he is pragmatic. Now, when he is at Real Madrid, Ancelotti, he allows the great players to play, but he gives them structure. Yeah. So we have a chance. This could go down extremely bad, but I think that France is got a very good chance.
All right, you guys are cutting out here.
Yeah, correct. But that said, if one player gets hurt, I think they're done. You know what I mean? So I think that Brazil has a sneaky way better chance than people think. I agree with Tito. I think that Brazil's snuck up to one of the top 4 or 5 teams where even 2-3 months ago, they were 7th or 8th. To predict a winner, they're going to have luck. I am not all over Spain like everybody else is. I really am not. Let me quickly say this then. I think that France is probably the number 1 favorites. I believe that Brazil is maybe the 3rd favorite, let's say. People would say Spain's the 2nd favorite. I don't believe it. Because here's the other thing. Let me go back to one last thing. If all these European teams can actually not be European, but naturalize people from all over the world, can't Brazil employ a non-Brazilian to coach them? I think that's slightly fair. And I think that he's
Dan left.
Yeah, no kidding. I think he did. I think he's pragmatic and he'll let our more talented players play. And if we don't get bad luck, I think we can win. But we've gotten bad luck for about 4 World Cups.
Okay. Are we done?
I'm here. We're good.
Oh, perfect. Your turn, Dan. Who do you think?
Your picture belt.
I always tell people I'm so busy in life, I don't have time to watch soccer. I don't really watch soccer that much because when I sit down and watch a soccer match, I have to stare at the TV for at least 90 minutes, right? If it's a good match I want to watch. American football is easy to watch while I'm doing laundry, answering emails, all that kind of stuff. So I save up 4 years and I watch all my soccer every 4 years of World Cup soccer. That's 90% of the soccer I watch. It's been that way most of my adult life. And so I count on guys like you guys to you're going to be in a much better position to make predictions or have opinions on all of this. And then so the World Cup for me becomes completely unexpected. I see players for the first time, right? And so that's the excitement of World Cup soccer for me. But I'm just so busy. I don't watch much sports on TV at all. So I'm up with it.
And it's funny. Back to this. I'll say one more thing. I also think that what Tito said about the Heat, I could tell you maybe why I think some teams will fail more than I believe Brazil will win. I think that Brazil's crept up into the top 4, so whatever, maybe 5. But I'm going to bump them up even more. Like an example, and Tito knows this, England's so favored to win. The only problem with England is they really haven't won forever. Right. And for them to win in the Heat with another added game, I just don't see England doing it. On paper, they might be all this, but I just don't see England doing it. I don't see that England's ever traveled. They've never traveled.
The English are as biased as we are for Brazil, but we've had a bunch of World Cups to back it up at least.
A reason to be biased.
Sure.
Yes.
All right, guys. On that note, thank you so much, Tito. I really appreciate your time. And
would love to come back on.
Yeah, I wanted to learn about you guys, and we could talk for hours. My grandbaby's waiting for me. I'm excited to go get to her.
That sounds like an awesome time.
This will probably go live in the next week or so. But again, just thank you guys so much. It meant a lot.
Thanks,
Have a great rest of the week, and we'll be talking soon.
Ciao.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye,
Yeah.
guys.